Let's be honest with ourselves, there's a lot of trash on YouTube. Throughout the platform's existence, we've seen the rise of many genres, along with their eventual corruption and subsequent demise. In this compilation video, I've got 3 of my old classics coming back. We'll be discussing the dangers of YouTube Kids content, the horrors of the commentary community, and then finally, the tragedies of family channels. With that said, let's get into it. It was on the 9th of March 2019 that an article written by Sapna Maheshwari in the New York Times was published, titled, "YouTube is improperly collecting children's data, consumer groups say." This article was one of the first to report on the unsettling news, that YouTube had been alleged by 20 consumer advocacy groups to be violating a children's privacy law by collecting information on people aged under 13 years old. They would be sued big time for this. But to understand why, let me fill you in. If you don't know much about this law, the important parts that you need to know is that children under the age of 13 cannot consent to having their data stored by social media companies. And it's all down to a law known as the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, or COPPA, as you might know it more famously as. This is one of many reasons why some social media platforms just don't provide service to children under the age of 13. YouTube, however, did, and it still does. But once it was found to be violating COPPA, it might have regretted it. Among other things, it was accused of tracking the viewing history of users under 13 in order to facilitate targeted advertisements, which, trust me, is something that we'll cover in much more depth later on. But as it turns out, this story actually goes a little bit deeper than that. Because if you know anything about YouTube, you'll know about YouTube Kids. Just in case you don't, it's a child-friendly area of the platform that does not collect data such as the names, addresses, and contact information of its child users. Apparently, it also has a sort of child lock feature on it, meaning that at least in theory, a parent has to be present there for their child to use it. So the question has to be asked, if they have YouTube Kids in place for those younger viewers, how on earth could YouTube be violating COPPA? Well, if you're a creator yourself, or you just like watching videos of us rant about the platform, you might have already heard the term before. Because a couple of years ago, there were a lot of creators that struggled with demonetization when COPPA came to the platform. Because there are some YouTubers that create child-friendly content, but they're not on YouTube Kids. But since you can't advertise to children in the way that YouTube does, creators that have been deemed to make child-friendly content on YouTube's main platform had their videos demonetized. It's to my understanding that children under the age of 13 were logging into YouTube's main platform and watching videos on there, and they had their information tracked, which you can't do, and so YouTube had not done enough to discourage this from happening. So if you're ever wondering why about 90% of creators hit their content in the ballpark of a PG-13 to a 17 audience, that's about half the story. In court, this was described as egregious and also extremely lucrative for Google. They had profited off this big time, and with this being the 3rd time since 2011 that they had come under fire for violating children's privacy, and having recorded over $30 billion in profits the year that the lawsuit began, by September 2019, a number of how much Google would lose was announced, and it was declared that they would be fined a whopping $170 million. And obviously, this also came with them having to restructure their monetization system, so videos that were deemed to be targeted towards children would no longer take in the money that they once did. It's fair to say that many people were both shocked and appalled by the fact that Google would just collect the data of everyone and anyone they saw fit. So let's move on to talk about more of the darkest depths of YouTube Kids content. And when it comes to it, there is an elephant in the room that I just have to address, and that is ElsaGate. If you're one of the 4 or 5 people watching this video that have no clue what ElsaGate is, I'll give you a little recap. It was about 5 or 6 years ago on YouTube when the platform came under heavy fire from the mainstream media after it was revealed that it had a terminal problem with people making horribly violent, sexual, or otherwise mature content, and then wrapping it up by posing as harmless kids content featuring Elsa, which is where the scandal got its name. But also featuring many other characters that kids love and are drawn to, such as Spider-Man, Mickey and Minnie Mouse, the Avengers and the Paw Patrol. This very well could be the most serious scandal that YouTube has ever been on the receiving end of. But let's be honest, it's been covered to absolute death. And so today, in this video, I want to touch on something that's been dubbed Elsagate 2.0. Now, the reason that this is called Elsagate 2.0 is because this is allegedly a return to Elsagate. But if you really dig into things, it seems as though the Elsagate never really stopped. It might have hidden back into the shadows for a year or two, but if you were a kid with one finger up his nose and the other one scrolling on your mum's iPad, you could easily find content that isn't fit for someone your age. Just within 5 or 10 minutes of going on the Elsagate subreddits, I found this screenshot of straight up porn that's literally on YouTube, fit within a playlist that's been titled Hey Arnold. I've also seen a video that's targeted towards children featuring a real chick with a knife up against its throat. I won't be showing it here for obvious reasons. And then I found this thread showing all of these different thumbnails that are again appealing towards children specifically to go and click on them. And because of this, I'm inclined to say that Elsagate isn't having a resurgence. I don't think that it ever stopped. During my research for this, I came across a few different videos describing how it's back and worse than ever. The best of these videos, in my opinion, that I've seen is Raymundo's, and I'll link his in the description if you want to go and delve into this topic in more depth. But to summarize what he was saying, this YouTube niche, if you want to call it that, has just changed to catch up with popular trends, with Huggy Wuggy or Among Us now being the properties of focus. The content that's being uploaded have very specific themes that are constantly being shown, such as pregnancy, dirty feet, or human waste. The theory is that these are all fetish themes, and the sick people behind these channels are trying to normalize their fetishes to a child audience. Raymundo also brings up some of the same points that I did with the Hey Arnold playlist and that, so I guess he's also in the subreddit, but Raymundo made his video 3 weeks ago, and I reached out to him to try and find out if his video had been manually reviewed, meaning that in theory, a human would have watched the entire way through and seen this. And you would hope that they would bring this to the attention of people in power that could do something about this, but as of 3 weeks later, the Hey Arnold playlists are still up. The unfortunate truth is that with a platform as large as YouTube, with 500 hours of content being uploaded every single minute, it would be near impossible to completely purge all of this content. It seems like a sort of whack-a-mole type beat, where the second that you take one of these channels down, 3 or 4 just replace them. But on the other hand, it's been about 6 years and it seems as though that we aren't much closer to solving this problem. The characters that have been the target of this might have changed, but the content has become more subtle. The largest offenders of this might have been terminated, but unfortunately, we're not done yet. I think that it's very important, however, to acknowledge that YouTube has made some effort in trying to iron out the problems in kids' content. And one of the best ways they've done this is by essentially enforcing a blanket ban on comment sections on kids' videos, because a couple of years ago, these were being hijacked by predators. Here's the deal, realistically, a comment left by a 6-year-old is of absolutely zero value to anyone, let's be honest. A comment left by a 36-year-old with the wrong intentions can have dramatic consequences. So there isn't a single shred of doubt in my mind that YouTube got it right here. This all started back in 2019, when a video from Matt Watson went viral on the r/drama subreddit, garnering 188,000 upvotes. This video, which has since been completely blurred, showed what he called a wormhole of child exploitation videos, about how someone could essentially find these sorts of videos with literally 5 or so clicks on a fresh YouTube page. And it goes without saying that this was an absolutely abhorrent problem for a number of reasons. Firstly, the exploitation. Do I need to say anything more? Secondly, these videos became a breeding ground for predators to talk and communicate. And thirdly, these videos a lot of the time were monetized, so therefore YouTube was making money off of this. I'm kind of lost for words with this entire thing. It's one thing knowing about it, a lot of people do, but it's another thing actually having done the research into it and knowing the intricacies of it. So I want to take a step back for a moment and talk about the subreddit, or at the very least talk about Matt Watson's post and what people have had to say about it. Firstly, people say that there's too much content being uploaded to YouTube to police, which is a point I made just before. Once again, just as with Elsagate, this might be true, but YouTube is good enough at demonetizing normal creators' videos, so that bot they have to check videos should hopefully in the modern day, 4 years later, have been programmed to completely expunge this content from YouTube. It's not needed. Secondly, the reason that it would take 2 or 3 clicks to get to this content is the fact that the YouTube algorithm was working the way that it always has. It brings you content that people that have similar viewing patterns to you watch. So guess what? If one creep is going to watch one of these videos, they're going to watch others too. So something would have to be done about that as well. YouTube eventually took away comments from kids' content in February 2019, after it's very likely that they were aware of these problems for quite a while. In November 2017, Joanna Wright, a former vice president of product management at YouTube, shared a 5-step blog post about how the video sharing giant planned to make YouTube safer, including a tougher application of YouTube guidelines, removing inappropriate advertising, blocking comments, providing guidance for family-friendly channels, and engaging with experts on the matter. But more and more in the 5 years since, although there haven't been too many new mainstream controversies come to light in reference to this, it would be perhaps a bit naive to believe that it's all hunky-dory right now. Don't take this as gospel because it's just my opinion, but I have to believe that somewhere deep down there in the darkest depths there is more of this kind of content lurking beneath the surface. This is not the last we've heard of it, even if we all hope that it will be. Okay, that was definitely the most dark and twisted parts of this video, so let's carry on to talk about something a little bit more lighthearted. Mom and Dad, please make sure to take away the electronic devices from your kids now, because studies have shown that children's entertainment such as Cocomelon might interfere with the development of your child. Now, I'm not a parent, not yet anyway. I really hope to be one day, but as of right now, I am nowhere near it. And so I can understand some apprehension coming from the parents watching this video, watching a young man who is nowhere near being a father talking about how you should or shouldn't raise your child. So allow me to refer to a study conducted by the University of Alberta to back my point. This study was conducted by Dr. Piyush Mandhane, and it found that children between the ages of 3 and 5 especially needed to develop a healthy relationship with how long they're looking at screens. Going on to say that 1 hour of high-quality programming for children of that age bracket was the upper limit. The researchers of the University of Alberta found that children that exceeded 2 hours of screen time a day were more likely to exhibit a number of behavioural problems, particularly paying attention, by the time they turned 5 years old. Additionally, children that spent more than 2 hours a week participating in a form of structured physical activity were less likely to experience mental health problems. So it seems as though, based on that study, the more time your children are up on their feet being active and the less they're sitting down just mindlessly gazing at Cocomelon, the better. It yields only positive results. And here's the kicker. According to this study, children who were watching screens for more than 2 hours a day were 7.7 times more likely to be diagnosed with ADHD compared to children who watch screens for less than 30 minutes a day. That is gargantuan. And this isn't even to touch on a theory that spread around the internet since April of last year, in which people think that watching Cocomelon increases tantrums and delays your child's speech. That is just a theory. As of me writing and recording this video, there is no complete and concrete evidence for this, but people do think it. The future effects that this will have on a generation of children that have been raised by it is still very much yet to be seen. ADHD numbers in children have almost doubled in the 20 years between 1997 and 2016, and though diagnoses have changed in that time, there is evidence to suggest that there's something impacting modern children that didn't impact them 25 years ago. And I wonder if letting your child that's say 4 years old scroll on short form content that's no longer than 60 seconds might have an impact on their imagination and their attention span compared to the forms of media that children back in the early 2000s or late 90s were consuming. And I know what you might say. Back then people were just raised by the TV, and now it's just changed to the internet. And I actually agree with you. I think a lot of what they say on The Simpsons about kids being absolutely absorbed by the TV has just evolved to them on the internet in the modern day. Even with myself as an online creator and an advocate for the fact that some online content can be as good as television, when it comes to kids videos, it's just not that. I feel as though kids' content on TV generally seems to be a bit more focused on learning morals and teaching kids stuff, at least compared to individuals on YouTube who could make literally whatever they want, regardless of education quality. That's just my personal opinion, and if you doubt me, I can actually back this up in parts with a study, but we're gonna have to move on for me to get there. In the meantime though, I want to, at least for a time, pivot from studies to talk about theories, and this next topic is going to be definitely the most controversial in this video. And that's because we're going to talk about politics. Yeah, the comment section is going to be fun. But the reason we're talking about this is because some people associated on the right have accused those on the left of trying to indoctrinate their children via YouTube content, spreading left-wing propaganda. So the question is, have they? Let's explore that. Now, first things first, this is not a political channel in the slightest. We touch on political topics from time to time, and I myself am politically informed, but I don't like pushing any agenda either side. I don't really have an agenda, so think of me as like a messenger. But if you're not aware, there have been claims, especially over the past few years, that children especially are being targeted by political groups. Both the right and the left often claim this, but the right tend to be a bit more vocal in this point, so I'm going to primarily focus on them. They claim that there's a lot of political content available to children on YouTube that's actually targeted towards them, but it isn't age appropriate because at their age, this is nothing more than indoctrination. For example, content focused on drag queens, the topic of consent, and also white privilege. A lot of this is also said to take place in classrooms across the USA because, at least from what I've seen, Europe and the rest of the world don't really seem to be so worried about this. The question lies firstly in what can and should be taught to children. Should societal problems be taught to them, and if they should be, how so? You surely can't bring something up in class and then only show the children half of the argument, right? Just the side that you agree with. You have to give them both sides of the coin. And secondly, if you believe that this kind of stuff is appropriate to teach to children, when do you do it? At what age can a child even grasp the concept of what a drag queen is, or what it means to be transgender, or what white privilege is? Should they not be protected from the talks of these deeper topics until they're old enough to more naturally understand? That's completely up to you. I'm not touching that debate in the slightest. But I will give you the flip side because although it's not as common, there have been some people on the left that have claimed that those on the right are doing the exact same thing. PragerU, for example, I'm sure many of you might have heard of before, but just in case you haven't, it's a popular American advocacy group that leans quite conservative. They have 3 million subscribers, their videos get a ton of views, and they too have a children's entertainment wing. Same story with PragerU's now parent company, The Daily Wire. The Daily Wire, if you don't know it, is a media company that employs many of the biggest conservative commentators such as Ben Shapiro, Candace Owens, and Matt Walsh. And they've invested $100 million into creating content for children that they claim is without ideology, but whether it actually is in practice, I don't know. Realistically, children tend to have the same political views as their parents, and it's only as they grow a bit older that they can actually consider for themselves how they view the world. But YouTube has come out to say that they understand that each family is different, and so they're happy with things just the way they are, and the political content from both sides that is aimed at children is not in violation of any community guidelines. So it seems as though this political arms race for your children's ideology, if you believe there even is one, is set to continue for the time being. And I want to hit you guys with another study now, something that's going to really wrap up everything we've kind of said today, because this one goes into basically everything we've already talked about in much more detail. From advertisements to inappropriate content to political content to uncovering the sorts of videos that children are watching, it's called Young Kids and YouTube: How Ads, Toys and Games Dominate Viewing. All of the videos used in this study were compiled by a total of 191 parents, and they were all from YouTube's main site, not YouTube Kids. The study was focused on YouTube and not YouTube Kids because of what we've already discussed: advertising, inappropriate content, and the fact that it's easier for parents to collect data on YouTube's main site rather than YouTube Kids. They found that advertising was pervasive, but the concern comes in when you consider that most target audiences experience ads on less content than young children. So as it turns out, advertisers are actually targeting young children more than the average person. And of these ads that parents found on their children's content, 1 in 5 were deemed to be age inappropriate. These children apparently experienced ads that were focused on violent video games, lingerie, and political messages coming from both the right and the left. And as for the content itself, apparently of these videos watched, 27% of them were content fit for older audiences, and 75% of these videos were purely suited for entertainment. 25% of them were seen as educational, and only 5% of them were seen to have had high educational value. In these videos, out of all inappropriate content types, the most commonly featured is violence, with roughly 30% of the videos being watched including at least a mild form of violence. The characters in these videos were only described as being a positive role model or a diverse representation 24% of the time. And as for you parents, shout out to the 97% of you who claim to at least somewhat monitor your child's online activity. This is split between the 63% who say they very much monitor what content their kids consume, compared to the 34% who say they somewhat monitor it. And then of course there's the 3% who say they don't monitor what their kids are watching whatsoever. If that's one of you, good luck. I hope this video is filling you in on some stuff. Parents tend to watch their children's content the least at about 3 to 5 and 11 to 14 years old, which coincidentally happens to be the ages where most advertising is targeted towards them. The study also split the findings between boys and girls, and they found that girls tended to watch content more focused on toys, whereas boys watched more gaming and challenge videos. These videos, all things included, tended to be of at least moderate quality, with only 4% of them being deemed as poor quality. But consumerism seemed to play a very large part in a lot of these videos too. Apparently 45% of them featured consumerism in at least a moderate level. And the problem here is that study after study have shown that children don't understand the intention of advertisements. They also form parasocial relationships with characters they love. And as much as that's a buzzword that I just hate to use because it's been blared to death, the fact of the matter is children build bonds with these characters. They're more likely to trust them, they're more likely to follow recommendations from them. And if you want a quick rundown of other inappropriate content that was seen, at least mild sexual content was seen in 6% of these videos, at least mild alcohol, drugs and smoking was depicted in 5%, and gendered stereotypes was seen in 9% of these videos. And so what does this all mean? Honestly, I don't know. Let it be known that this study included its own limitations. It's not perfect by any means, few studies ever are, but it suggests that there are problems that need to be addressed. I don't ever want to be a news anchor. I don't want to ever be the person to tell you to worry and panic and freak out. And I don't have all the answers. As I said, I'm not a dad yet. I'm not even close. There really is no secret antidote I can give you. But at least in hopes for the future, for a generation not just born after the advent of the internet, but a generation that's been born after YouTube has become what it has today, we can sit down and acknowledge that there are some severe problems. There's still so much left to be done at giving these kids the very best chance at harnessing the best that the internet has to offer. Giving them entertainment, yes, but also high quality, thought-provoking educational content. I want to thank you guys very much for watching this video. It's been a pleasure, and a shout out to Surfshark VPN for being the sponsor. If you enjoyed this video, I would appreciate it if you liked it and subscribed if you haven't already. No pressure though. Apart from that, thank you for watching, and I'll see you later. For this video, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. I'm going to risk losing my audience to bring you some content that is as thought-provoking as it is risky for me. I might make some friends from this video, I very well might make some enemies from this video, but what's life for if you don't want to roll the dice a couple of times? You guys might not know this, but on the YouTube Studio, there's a page that allows you to see which other creators and videos your audience is watching. From this, I know that some of you have fantastic taste watching the likes of Eudoxia Mysteries and Visual Venture, and I also know that a lot of you also watch Illuminati. I believe that she's the 4th most popular creator among my audience over the past month, so there's a good chance that a lot of you watch her videos. But you might not know that she's been caught up in some drama over the past few weeks. Now, I'm not really one to jump on the drama bandwagon very much, at least when I have nothing new to add, but I do think I have a unique perspective here. A quick overview of what's happened was that Illuminati went to Twitter to voice her annoyance that a Legal Eagle editor by the name of Danny had been copying her. She'd received some emails and Discord messages from Danny inquiring into some of the methods that she uses to create the visual effects for some of her videos. Further down in the thread, she posts evidence of what this plagiarism is, and the examples that she provides are laughably flimsy. She shows a ripped page effect and highlighted text effect as being copied straight from her, which can be seen as totally self-important and egotistical. Let me be clear that I don't want to cast judgment on her character because I don't know this woman, but using the same effects as other creators is not plagiarism, and to think it is absolutely ridiculous. Especially the highlighted effect, because every documentary YouTube channel uses that effect. I use it all the time. I'll probably use it in this video. I didn't take it from her though. I took it from other creators. It's inspiration, it's not plagiarism. People then pointed out some hypocrisy because Illuminaughtii actually takes inspiration for parts of her videos directly from other people's work, and then everyone just started to clown on her.
Then in 1995, he was suspended from practicing medicine and made to pay a $10,000 fine for his misuse and misprescribing of controlled drugs.
Then in 1995, he was suspended from practicing medicine and made to pay a $10,000 fine for his misuse of prescribing controlled drugs.
And if we want to relate things back to commentary channels, it's interesting because a lot of different commentary channels always cover the same topics, using the same points and the same visuals. But does it mean that they're copying each other? Of course not. I'm not really much of a reader, but recently I read Austin Kleon's Steal Like an Artist. It's an absolute essential for a budding creative, and in the book, he makes the point that you should steal. Steal a highlight effect from one creator, steal lighting ideas from another one, steal thumbnail inspiration from a third. Only if you steal dozens of ideas from dozens of creators will you have something new and original. I think that Illuminaughtii is completely within her right to steal quotes directly from other documentaries if what she's doing with them makes it an original piece of work, but it's only when you call others out for this kind of thing that makes you a hypocrite. If you steal from one person, you're a plagiarist, but if you steal from many people, you're an artist. That's a quote I stole. And if you watch a single Legal Eagle video, you will know that his style is not ripped directly from Illuminaughtii. Either way, in the wake of this, others came out to throw other accusations at her. She's been accused of treating her editors very poorly, she's been accused of being manipulative and toxic, which again, I don't want to delve into too much because I don't know her personally, I don't want to cast judgment on her character, but I will say that her behaviour hasn't just recently been questioned. It's not like everyone's just been waiting for her to slip up so they can pounce on her, and for my point, I'll direct you to a video made by Ringman of Chaos, which was uploaded back in April of 2021, so it's more than 2 years old now. And in this video, he goes through many more of the controversies that she's been a part of, many of which have remained relatively unknown until now. But she's been accused of deleting videos from other people's channels, of treating people unfairly, of having double standards, of abusing the copyright system to silence her critics, and being caught in the act of doing so. Nicholas Diorio, for example, made a video that criticised Illuminaughtii, which had Illuminaughtii fan art in the thumbnail. This video obviously upset her enough to reach out to the artist who made the fan art of her to try and get the entire video taken down. She called Nick's channel a damn hate channel, disregarding context and reality entirely. This was seriously manipulative behaviour. If you're interested in this old drama, I'm going to link Ringman of Chaos' video down in the description, but this is all to say that this behaviour isn't new, it's been going on for years. And yeah, even though she's apologised to the Legal Eagle editor that she tried to expose to the internet, who was a fan of hers by the way, that's why he reached out in the first place, and then she just turned around and did that to him, which was completely unwarranted, and it must have been awful. She's apologised to him and he has accepted the apology, but I wonder, did she apologise because she's reassessed this situation and she's gone, wow, that was awful for me to just blast this guy from the Legal Eagle team on Twitter? Has she done it because she thinks that, yes, she was really wrong to do so? Or has she done it because she noticed the entire internet has turned on her and she knows that it makes business sense to try and sweep this under the rug and move on and apologise? I don't know. I understand that this is a gamble because a good portion of my audience watch her too, but toxic and manipulative behaviour in the commentary community is commonplace, so I thought I would address it here. Now with that said, I think that the best place to continue with this video is with a little theory that I have called the commentary food chain. That's just a name that I've given it, you might have another word for it, but the theory goes like this. Essentially, you have one commentary creator who makes a bunch of different videos on a bunch of different people, and everyone loves them for it, and they raise in status and subscribers, and eventually they mess up. And their mistake is capitalized on a second creator who completely tears them down in a video, and now they're the top dog, until they eventually mess up, and then a third creator pounces on them, and it's like this food chain of, you know, bigger predators eating, and then, you know, being eaten, and then eating and being eaten, and it's just this weird, I don't know, food chain, circle of life, whatever you want to call it. It carries on, so on and so forth, until the end of time, or until the chain is broken. It's not a new thought or theory in the slightest, but if you decide to enter the commentary coliseum, you enter into this. Probably the most famous example was Keemstar going out and literally reporting on all of the drama that was going on. He capitalized on other creators getting into beef. He becomes friends with Leafy and Grade A Under A back in 2015 or 2016, but those two eventually distanced themselves from Keemstar, turning on him and calling him out. Leafy carries on making commentary videos of his own, but eventually gets ruined by iDubbbz in his infamous content cop where he points out the hypocrisy in Leafy absolutely destroying other people when he has insecurities himself, that being his lack of chin. Initially, a lot of people thought that this content cop ruined Leafy's credibility or ruined his career, and then since then people have come out and said no, it was other things. Either way, he was on borrowed time. iDubbbz was really the first one to get one over on Leafy, but either way, Leafy wasn't going to survive long on YouTube because policy and algorithm changes would have brought him down sooner or later. Even so, iDubbbz was now the top dog in many people's eyes, but not for long because over the next few years, he would shift his style of content. And then in 2021, iDubbbz would try and film a documentary about Sam Hyde. But Hyde, thinking that this was going to be some sort of an attack on him, filmed a counter-documentary where he played iDubbbz like an absolute fiddle. Obviously, it's not just Sam Hyde who could be considered the cause of the downfall of iDubbbz, if you want to call it that. I don't think iDubbbz really wants to be in the commentary community anymore. Now, whether or not Sam Hyde later gets completely destroyed by someone, that's left to be seen, but since Hyde isn't exactly a commentary channel, I'd argue that the chain has now been broken. I once again want to say that this is a bit of a surface level observation, but we've all seen the self-destructive nature of commentary channels, so my point is this. Commentary is a poison chalice. Audiences are fickle, longevity is rare, and if you're a commentary channel, your time at the top is limited before you get knocked off your perch. Very few commentary channels last more than a couple of years, but the next creator that I want to talk about is a bit of a rare exception. If we take things back to the start of this video, I talked about the channels that my audience also watch. I'm taking yet another bite of the cherry here to talk about a creator who's even more popular with my audience than Illuminati is. He's the second most popular channel watched by my viewers over the past month or so, and he's a man who's just as controversial as the other creators I've spoken about, of course that being Turkey Tom. I mean, it makes sense. We make similar enough content, but you guys should all know that in the YouTube commentary food chain, foxes eat turkeys. So if you don't know Turkey Tom, it goes without saying that he's a commentary channel, but a very divisive one at that. He's been around for ages, creating his channel back in 2015, but if you look him up online, you will see that he is way younger than you might think because he's only 20 years old. That being said, my guy has had more controversies than candles on his last birthday cake. I mean, if his Wikipedia page is to be believed, he's been on YouTube since he was like 13 or 14 years old. But if you're growing up being a YouTuber, it's only natural that there's going to be some learning curves involved. So here's just a quick rundown of the controversies that he's caught himself up in. First, let's talk about his past racism. So this one shouldn't be too much of a shocker to anyone that knows Turkey Tom. Case in point, if you look up Turkey Tom R on Google, search result number 6 is about him being racist. A couple of years ago, D'Angelo Wallace tweeted out accusing Tom of harboring a bunch of racists in his comments. Apparently, this was because he included some anti-Semitic imagery in his video YouTube sponsors. According to an article I found attacking Tom for this, a lot of the comments on there said that he's addressed this since, but I personally couldn't find anything confirming this. I did find some other D'Angelo Wallace tweets though, showing Tom using the N-word in his Discord back in 2018. Turkey Tom's N-words were dropped 5 years ago now, so he would have been 15 or 16 maybe. Was he racist? Does that mean he's still racist? Does he get a pass because of his age? I'm sure we've all said things around that age that we regret. God knows I do. And if you haven't, you're either a liar or a terrible person because it clearly shows that you haven't grown since then. And that's the big thing, it's about growth. Has Turkey Tom grown since he was 15 or 16? I don't know, I couldn't tell you because I don't know the guy. Does that give him an excuse? No, of course not, but the guy's never going to apologise for saying the N-word in a Discord chat half a decade ago, and that also doesn't mean that that's who he is today, something that we'll get into in a moment, but for now we're keeping things in the late 2010s because that's when the second of his big controversies that I want to talk about in this video is set. Back in 2017, Turkey Tom uploaded videos attacking a creator called the Mysterious Mr. Enter creator for several petty reasons, like criticizing his editing, taking offense that he has small black bars around the borders of his frame, saying that his videos aren't of a high quality, taking aim at his fans, and then he also jokingly called the mysterious Mr. Enter a pedophile in a passing joke, which some people took to be true.
Ah, good. A weird, lonely, socially inept man is going to be explaining what it is like to grow up like a little girl. Well, I guess their interest in My Little Pony and dating prepubescent boys will be one thing in common.
Turkey Tom was about 16 at the time, and I'd hope that he looks back at these videos with perhaps a bit of regret. I'd assume that he does because he even took the video where he made this joke down, and I'd assume that it's because he knows that these kinds of jokes can rile up an audience, because otherwise the message of this video, as harsh as it was a valid point to be made. For context, the video was about a Kickstarter campaign that was never going to work, so his points on the project were valid, but because people took this joke as truth, the mysterious Mr. Enter had to come out with his own video defending himself, which was positively received. Call it naivety if you want, but this kind of thing was a bad look for Tom. However, when it comes to the pyrocynical accusations, this is where the stakes had changed. These videos dropped around Christmas time of 2020, when Tom was now 18 years old. And instead of just jokingly calling Pyro a predator, he's much more direct in questioning whether he is. He attempted to poke holes in Pyro's defense of the accusations, but unfortunately for him, both videos that he made received a tremendous amount of backlash from their audiences, one of which received more than 100,000 dislikes compared to only 13,000 likes. Tom wouldn't upload another video until March of 2021 following the backlash. So it's clear to see that there's really a rabbit hole of controversy and drama in Tom's old content, but it would be kind of pointless to get mad at now because these incidents are years old at this point, done by a guy whose content and also likely his personality have changed dramatically since. But speaking of his content, I want to take a deeper look into it. His videos today, in my opinion, fit into this hybrid of commentary and documentary, which to be honest, seems to be where the commentary genre is going. My prediction is that these styles of YouTube documentaries are going to replace the commentaries of the mid to late 2010s, and I feel as though Tom knows this too. If you look on his channel, his description has one word and one word only: edutainment. A portmanteau or fusion of the words education and entertainment. Now, this word could be used to describe his newer work for sure. I'd use it to describe my work too. But his old work? No chance. That was all entertainment. Tom grew up, his content matured, but the algorithm changed too. Back when he was doing this kind of thing, swear bans weren't really a thing, so you could swear as much as you wanted to, and trust me, he did. Policies against criticizing other creators weren't as enforced as they are today. Simply put, to be Tom's size today, he couldn't be doing the same things that he was doing 4 years ago, and I would hope he wouldn't want to. If you take a look into his content, you'll see that as of recent, there's an edge, yes, but it's definitely more YouTube documentary-esque. It focuses on stories and events rather than other creators in similar spheres. He still has an edge, don't get me wrong, but my interpretation is that his style of videos seem a bit more corporate, for lack of a better word. His second channel, on the other hand, seems to be a bit closer to what his main channel used to do. It sounds a lot more off script for one, and it also seems to be a lot more character focused than subject based. But this is his second channel, so you have to ask, why has this now taken a backseat to a more mature documentary style of doing things on his main? Mark my words, commentary isn't dead or dying, but it is evolving and it's shifting. And Tom, as flawed of a past as he has, is, in my opinion, the clearest example of this change. But the commentary community, as expansive as it is, has so many different corners to explore, so of course I want to touch on all of them. But to do that, we're going to have to move to a topic that's perhaps a bit more divisive and talk about political commentary channels. There's two political creators that I want to talk about, one of them being from the left and one of them being from the right, because I only think that's fair. And let me preface this by saying this is not a political channel. I say this every time. This isn't a political channel. I am politically informed as much as I can be. I don't like letting politics rule my life or anything, but I don't think it's fair for me to push any of my agendas on you. Listening to a YouTuber for political advice is stupid in my opinion, so I try and keep things as unbiased as I possibly can. So I'm going to try and go into both of these with a level head. So with that said, let's talk about Hassan Piker and Brett Cooper. Now, political commentary has always had a place on the internet, but I'd argue that on YouTube at least, it's definitely taken off in the past 5 to 10 years quite a bit compared to its early days. There have been a few channels though that have been around since the early days. One of the most recognizable of these is The Young Turks, hosted by Cenk Uygur and Arna Kasparian. This is a left-wing political commentary channel, and it's fair to say that they polarize their audience. Just look at their Google reviews. You're either with them or you're against them. If you're a fan of left-wing political content, you'll know Cenk and The Young Turks. But what a few of you might not know is that Hasan Piker, one of the largest Twitch streamers in the world right now, is actually Cenk's nephew. And this means two things. One, a lot of people have accused Hasan of being a nepo baby because he's closely related to one of the biggest political figures on the internet. And two, family dinners must be really weird. Like, if any of my uncles were content creators, I wouldn't want them to talk about it. But it's the first of these that I really want to delve into because to many of his critics, Hasan is a walking contradiction. If you've ever heard of the term champagne socialist, many people have accused Hasan of being one because he's a multi-millionaire Twitch streamer with a home in LA worth almost $3 million. Let me say too that it's not just the right that have attacked him for this. Figures on the left, such as Isabel Alexis, have done it too in a since deleted tweet. The argument was that his entire personality, the figure that he presented to his audience, was someone who was happy to go against the 1%, to be a voice for the people. He doesn't like the rich, he doesn't like landlords, but now he's in that 1%. He has a luxury mansion. How could he speak for you or for me from his ivory tower? At the same time though, you can firstly make the point that he uses a lot of his money for noble causes. For example, he and his audience were able to raise more than $1 million for the Turkey earthquake, and then a month later, he personally donated another $25,000 to charity, this time to a dog shelter. And then there's the fact that Hasan is literally just participating in capitalism. He didn't choose these rules, but he is playing the game because he has to, and it's to my belief that he's never exploited anyone to get as large as he is. So there's definitely two sides to this debate. If we're solely talking about his commentary though, he's been caught up in a plethora of scandals and controversies because of what he said in the past. For example, the cracker controversy. Back in December 2021, Hasan was banned from Twitch for a week for using the word cracker in reference to white people in an aggravated rant. He died on the hill saying that the word isn't racist because the word has no power, as white people have never been oppressed historically. Now, I've never met anyone who takes offense to the word cracker, but apparently there is a history to the use of the word. According to Wikipedia, it was apparently a racial slur used in reference to poor rural whites, and since in Twitch's guidelines it states that you can't use a slur in reference to a protected characteristic, which would include race, even with white people, Twitch by their own guidelines had to ban him. But that controversy was very mild compared to what we're about to talk about, because believe it or not, Hasan once said that America deserved to have 9/11 happen to it.
America deserved 9/11, dude. It. I'm saying it.
We want to know what's happening.
Like, we fucking totally brought it on ourselves, dude. Holy shit. We did. We fucking did. In a video game, whatever, hypothetically, politically, we fucking did, man.
He was pulled onto his uncle's show to clarify that no, what people interpreted was not what he meant. What he claims that he actually meant was that United States foreign policy and the activities in the Middle East prior to the tragedy had a boomerang effect that caused the incident. This video was widely criticized, still to this day having an almost 1-to-2 like to dislike ratio. And then of course you have his beef with Brett Cooper, the figure from the right that we're going to talk about next, because if you're unaware, these two actually have a history together. Hasan accused Cooper from the comments section of essentially being a female Ben Shapiro. If you don't know Brett Cooper, she's a member of the Daily Wire, a prominent right-wing media company. I feel like I might have mentioned her in passing before, but there's this big joke in that community, and even outside of it, all over the internet in fact, that Brett Cooper and Ben Shapiro are essentially the male and female versions of each other on account that they look quite similar and share similar political stances. But then Hasan made an interesting point to jump on, that being about the Brett Cooper brand, if you will. You see, Brett Cooper being a part of the Daily Wire means that her content is very much studio produced. She has a crew that works on her show that includes producers, editors, sound people, set designers and whatnot. I'd also assume that she's got some people to help her brainstorm ideas or to let her know if there's been any interesting internet beef to go down that she can comment on. Her channel uploads almost twice a day, so it's a huge operation for sure. But the crux of the judgment held against her is this. The comment section wasn't made by Brett Cooper, it was made for her. She's previously revealed in an interview with Mike Huckabee that after being raised with conservative values, she went out to act in Hollywood. It was there that she was quickly surrounded with leftist ideologies all around her. All of her friends were on the left, the jobs that she was doing was supporting leftist ideas. Eventually, she went to college where she joined the Kappa Delta sorority, but was later kicked out of her sorority for being on the right. Say what you want about that, but this led her to write conservative articles for various different groups before being reached out to by the Daily Wire for a show. It was actually them that reached out to her for a show, to which you have to ask yourself the question, why Brett? Now, I mean no disrespect when I ask this question. Brett Cooper is younger than me and she's done way more in her time than I have in mine. She carries herself in a very composed manner for the most part, but there must have been a lot of people that the Daily Wire looked at for their show, so why her? But when you look on the Daily Wire, you'll see that Brett Cooper fills a gap. Brett Cooper's content, when you look at it, is very much pop culture related. She reacts to popular videos, gossip, TV, movies, TikToks and whatnot, but when she does it, it feels very normal. Jordan Peterson, for example, who's also part of the Daily Wire, probably couldn't make a video on the new Barbie movie. It would feel out of touch. Brett Cooper, however, can. She can make videos about Drake and Josh or Teen Vogue, and it feels authentic. But then, if you dig into these videos that seem like they're pop culture, you'll notice that they're filled with conservative messages. She doesn't hide it within her videos or anything, but you still have to ask yourself, with such a large team behind her, who's really calling the shots here? Because it could be seen that Cooper's brand attracts an audience of teens and young adults who might not have fully formed political opinions yet, and it entices them with pop culture before hitting them over the head with conservative messages. Cooper herself, being an actress that was in Hollywood, is a very useful weapon to have because she's seen the industry involved in a lot of what she's talking about firsthand. I don't think it's malicious on her end. This is a phenomenal opportunity for her and it aligns with her personal beliefs, so it makes sense. But equally, I think the Daily Wire clearly wanted to appeal to a Gen Z audience with the comment section. This was planned. They knew what they were doing when they chose her for the show, but based on just how popular the comment section is, their strategy evidently worked out. I was brought up by family vloggers, and it ruined my life. That's the title of a viral Reddit post by an unnamed 17-year-old girl who claimed to be part of a family channel that, a few years ago, had amassed over 500,000 subscribers. As the first generation of Family Channel children reach adulthood, it's fair to say that the past few years have not been kind to the genre. There have been several viral posts such as that, there have been infamous incidents that have led to children being taken away from their parents, and there have been multi-million-dollar lawsuits aimed at adults that have forced children into a line of work that they never asked for. In this video, we're going over some of the most noteworthy and unique Family Channel cases, many of which you might have never heard of. For as much as something like Daddy-O5 fits into the themes of this video, it's been spoken about to death now. I really don't want to pile on and say the exact same things as everyone else. I want to give you guys something new. To do that, we need to begin with some background to the genre before we talk about its slow but sure corruption and commercialization. To start off with, you might be surprised to hear that the genre hasn't always been the exploitative, abusive, and superficial niche of videos that we know it as today. It actually has much more humble backgrounds, that of course being the family home video. For as long as cameras have been accessible to the general public, we've been taking videos of our friends and family. It makes sense to do it, and it's generally harmless. To get a bit morbid for a second, your parents or grandparents will likely die before you, so to keep hold of a time capsule of moments together, a memento of the laughs you shared and times you enjoyed, is actually quite beautiful. On the flip side, your children, if you're lucky, will one day grow up. They won't be babies forever, and so to have videos of them growing up to cherish for the rest of your life is utterly amazing. Film cameras over the years have evolved to the point now in which we have them in our back pockets for 24 hours of the day. And so it makes sense that people would take their home videos and then upload them to the internet. The family channel genre, the best I could find, can be traced back to videos uploaded in the late 2000s. I think that the best example of this evolution is the Shaytards, whose tagline is, "If life's worth living, then it's worth recording." That is a very family channel perspective if you ask me. Now, the Shaytards are not the most egregious family channel out there, at least not in the modern day. Their videos currently seem like a bit of a shared vlog account. However, a few years ago for sure, you could have easily described them as a family channel, but if you go back even further, you'll see that they were established in 2008, and their videos from 14 or 15 years ago are in fact these very pure, very natural family vlogs, not really intending to be seen by hundreds and thousands of people. Innocently at first, these people were just sharing their family experiences for the whole world to see, and audiences were eating it up. Whether it be child viewers who can relate to the children of these videos, or whether it be adults who just want to share in the joys of parenthood, these videos have pure origins. However, with larger audiences came the ability to monetize your videos. From there, family activities could become more outlandish. The more your channel grew, the more your family could, first of all, make massive amounts of money, and secondly, go on crazier and crazier adventures. Now there was an incentive to record and share your family's most intimate moments. It seemed as though the more you shared, the more you let your audience into this one-way relationship, the more views you would get. It also helped that in the early 2010s, YouTube's algorithm favored creators who were able to get viewers coming back each and every day. That's what led to the rise of genres such as the Let's Play, but also the daily vlog, perhaps the most invasive sector of the family channel niche. Over the next few years, the genre would become more established, and by the mid-2010s, it was really in full swing. Keep in mind that some of these children from the Shaytards are now fully grown adults. Their oldest son is 19 and their oldest daughter is 18 as of the time of me writing this. The long-term effects of having a camera shoved in their face for the past 14 years is now only going to start to be seen. This applies to any family channel kid who's reaching maturity, by the way, not just the Shaytards. These channels are a different beast entirely to the child actors on Nickelodeon and Disney, for example, because while few of these children are perhaps as famous as those TV kids, child actors in Hollywood at the very least don't usually have their daily lives documented from the time they're 4. I mean, can you imagine trying to navigate teenagehood with a vlog camera shoved in your face? Worse yet, if there was a major controversy in your family, it leaked all over the internet to the entire web, leading to millions of people knowing the most private, intimate details of your family's lowest points. Legitimately, for a young person to grow up with the eyes of the internet on you, for you to know that everyone at school might know the darkest secrets of your family, they might know all the skeletons in their closet. I mean, it might not be for some people, but I would be traumatized by that. Keep in mind that for these children, this is at no fault of their own, it's just the environment that they grew up in, forced on them by their parents. And that leads us into our next topic. If you're watching this video, it's very likely that you have a family of some sort. If you don't, I'm incredibly sorry, but nonetheless, everyone should know that families are incredibly messy. To put on my cliche film student video essay cap for a moment, I think that one of the reasons that The Simpsons was such a huge hit in the 90s is that it took the stereotypical family sitcom and flipped it on its head, holding up a mirror to society. For as much as 80s sitcoms portrayed families as having strong cores foundationally, but the characters got up to some zany, wacky antics, something like The Simpsons was telling us that families are dysfunctional, they're chaotic, and it's something that people can relate to. During my research for this video, I found a Medium article written by Gillian Sisley, and she wrote something that particularly stood out to me. She said, "Narcissism disguised as the perfect family. It's important to keep in mind these channels aren't unfiltered. These parents are showing you exactly what they want you to see. And as for the parts that aren't favourable, well, they just edit that out." I think that part of the appeal of family channels is that they're meant to be pure and innocent, reminiscent of 80s sitcoms in which they get up to some zany, wacky antics and foolish hijinks, but at the end of the day, the family have strong emotional bonds that can never be broken. Unless, you know, one of them cheats on the other, just like in the aforementioned case of Shay Carl, or in the case of the Shaytards family friends, the Knive Knolls, a now divorced interracial husband-wife duo with 3 kids. In this case, the husband Austin was unfaithful to his wife Brittany, with this being confirmed by her to be the reason that the two divorced in a vlog from early 2018. Another instance of this could be the Christian family channel Sam and Nia, after it was reported that the husband Sam had accessed Ashley Madison, an online dating service for people to have affairs, described as a business built on the back of broken hearts. Of course, this false reality of the perfect family isn't exclusive to adultery, because it can sometimes come in the form of literal abuse towards the children. As I said at the start of this video, I won't be going into a full-on explanation of Daddy-O5, but to grossly oversimplify, these family vlogs were actually deemed to be abusive to 2 of the children in particular, so much so that they were actually taken away from their father and stepmother. A similar story also happened with a channel called 8 Passengers after they were accused of abuse because they made their 15-year-old son sleep on beanbags for 7 months. A lot of people found the parents of the 8 Passengers channel to be way too severe and started to question their methods. They eventually stopped uploading at the very start of 2022. We could even take the Reddit post as potential evidence if it is in fact written by a former family channel child. My point is that just like a lot of content online, this content is not real. The families, at least the way they portray themselves, are not real. They are a projection of what the perfect family would look like because that's what their subscribers want to see. I want to clarify that none of the points that I'm making here should be interpreted as an attack. As I mentioned earlier, these cases have been covered to death, and I don't really want to dogpile on, but they're still very relevant. At the end of the day, these are real families with real people in them, even if what they're showing you is fake. And it's only when you dig a bit deeper, however, that you realise that what was on the surface this nice, fun, wholesome activity is actually a bit chilling when you think about it. We've become accustomed to family channels on the internet. They're a popular genre, or at the very least they were at a point in time. I think that we've all seen family channels in the past and scoffed at them for using their children for clicks, but have you ever taken a moment out of your day to pause and actually think about that? Like genuinely think about it? I think that it's time for this video to address what this actually is in some cases. At the end of the day, being a YouTuber is a job to some of these kids. They have consistent upload schedules and they are the key ingredient in a money-making business, some of which are worth millions of dollars, and to top it all off, they never really had a choice. Let's get it straight, this is some next level Truman Show stuff. Some of these children have been on camera since before they were born, and a 5-year-old who's been raised in this environment won't really understand it until they're older because they just can't. For them, being on camera is just a part of life. They have no concept of whether it's right or wrong, and even if they did, what are they gonna do? Go out to their parents and say, sorry mother, I think not. It's not gonna happen, they wouldn't be listened to. Obviously, usually children working is illegal, but in the case of family channels, it's not exactly. There's a lot of legal grey areas and loopholes to be exploited, and since this is a recent phenomena, it's only natural that the law hasn't been able to keep up. You could make the argument that the way that some of their parents treat them is kind of reminiscent of child actors who have been forced into the industry by their parents. I made the comparison earlier, so I want to delve a little bit more into it, but at least with child actors in the USA, they have Coogan accounts that in theory should protect the money that they make from their parents. I mean, not in the case of Jeanette McCurdy, but the point is that there have been some legislation put in place in some areas of the world that try to protect young people from parents who might not have the best intentions. The internet, unfortunately, doesn't have anything like this. And it wasn't until April of 2022 that it seems as if anyone actually cared to do anything about it, as it was then that a 17-year-old Seattle native Girl Scout named Chris McCarthy wrote to local lawmakers to try and protect children from being exploited for cash in family vlogs. Apparently, McCarthy spent months researching into the concept of child influencers and was both fascinated and simultaneously appalled at the lack of regulation around child labour online. This phenomena has been reported on by several news outlets, but it's not really something I've seen discussed here on YouTube. According to a Guardian article I found during research for this video, they had even coined the phrase kidfluencer to refer to a child who is also an influencer. That article, by the way, came out back in 2019, so it's 4 years old now. This isn't exactly new. But still, over the past 4 years, even if the family channel genre has kind of died out, children being the faces of multi-million-dollar companies has not. In research for this video, I read a portion of Carolina Carello's study on family channels titled YouTube Family Vlogging as a Promoter of Digital Child Labour, a case study on the Bucket List family. As the title suggests, in this study she looks at a YouTube channel called the Bucket List Family. They have 1.44 million subscribers and they've been on YouTube for about 8 years now. She found that 48%, so essentially half of their videos, refer to their children's ages in the titles, whether it be 5-year-old or baby or kid. This is to say that the focus of these videos, the reason that people are clicking on them, is because these children are the stars. They're the draw-in, they are the unique selling point, they are the moneymakers. And this feature is even more blatantly obvious when you look at the Bucket List Family's videos that have performed the best. Almost all of them feature these buzzwords alongside the children put into some sort of dramatized peril, often to do with deep sea swimming. Speaking of which, Carello also makes a bit of an observation within her study that it's clear that within their most popular video, the kids are put into a diving cage that is clearly not meant for them, as they need to wear weighted belts around their waist to keep them submerged, and the gear is clearly not fit for humans their size. The study then goes on to discuss the revenue generated by the video itself. For reference, their most popular video has 19 million views, it's almost 25 minutes long with 5 ad breaks and potentially has a paid partnership and a sponsor that was played with by the kids themselves. And that links us up well to the point that I made at the start of this segment, which is that these children are being used to advertise a brand. Did they ever sign a contract for this? I mean, I can't be certain, but I would assume not. Are they ever going to see the money that they generated through this sponsorship? I mean, it's very possible that they will, but since there's no legislation put in place that would guarantee it, I mean, it's very possible that they also won't. The way things are right now, whether it be for the Bucket List family or for any other family channel on the internet, even if the children are the driving force behind the views, the parents are going to be the one to make everything, and all it costs is the rights of privacy of their children, again signed on by the parents. And the parents of these channels are the only ones who are guaranteed to make any money out of it, because at the end of the day, it's their name behind the YouTube channel, it's their accounts that the money would be deposited into. The children are not guaranteed anything because there's no contracts, there's no legislation, there are no clauses. And even if there were, a 5-year-old cannot sign a legally binding contract. Fortunately though, over the next few years, it does seem as though things are going to start to look a little bit better. Going back to an earlier point, Chris McCarthy was able to team up with a Washington State Representative, Emily Wicks, to draft up a bill to try and protect these kids. According to the TechCrunch article that reported on the incident, if the content reached a certain monetary threshold and has an individual minor featured over 30% of the time, in that case, a percentage of the family vlog's income would be set aside in a trust to be given to the child when they turn into an adult. When that happens, the individual could then also request that the content that they appeared in be removed from the internet. There have also been British members of parliament who have sought to address this issue, as kidfluencers also seem to be very popular over here. To me, that just makes common sense, because while I'm not accusing the Bucket List family, nor am I accusing any other YouTube family channel of doing anything, I'd also wager that there are a small handful of these channels that might not have the best intentions at heart. Corello concludes her study by mentioning that the top 5 videos on the Bucket List family channel have 40 million views combined. They all use the children as unique selling points for the videos, and they're all fully monetized. I can't come to any other conclusion myself other than these children are working. The final line of the essay concludes, "Perhaps by acknowledging that these children are workers for their families' businesses, society becomes more aware of the need to protect them." A statement that I completely agree with, and a fitting ending to this segment of the video. Moving on, I'm putting up a content warning here, because you might even think that all of these stories that I've covered today seem minuscule compared to what we're about to talk about. It's interesting because for as much media coverage as Daddy-O5 received or Fantastic Adventures, nowhere near as much has been said about a family channel that perhaps could be considered worse if the allegations against it are true. Let's talk about the Piper Raquel lawsuit. Now this is important. I need to preface this segment of the video by saying that these allegations are merely that. They are allegations. They have not been proven true in a court of law in the slightest. Not yet, at least. But a short while ago now, news stories broke about a lawsuit being levied against the mother of a very popular creator, Piper Raquel. If you've never seen the channel before, it is incredibly successful, having more than 600 videos, more than 11 million subscribers, and almost 3 billion views. But it's possible that this all came at a price for the teenagers involved in getting it where it is today. Like, seriously, some of the things that Piper Raquel's mother is said to have done are so over the line, I literally cannot mention them here. However, I will try and mention as much as I can in a respectful manner. So some background is that Piper Raquel a few years back formed a squad to appear in her videos. It's nothing new or anything. Creators banding together to make content has been done before, and it will be done again. What separates this group of creators from many others, however, was that many of these members since forming the squad have come out to accuse Raquel's mother, Tiffany Smith, of all sorts of abuse, ranging from verbal to emotional to physical and even sexual. In total, 11 minors came out to file a lawsuit worth $22 million, with these people ranging in age from 16 to just 10 years old. For that reason, I think you can understand a little bit better why I don't really want to get into any specific details here. Not only would it land this video on a one-way ticket to demonetization city, but also I just think mentally it wouldn't be good for me to have to write down, then record, then edit all of these things that Tiffany Smith is said to have done. An article by The Independent detailing the lawsuit from back in April of this year stated, "In the lawsuit, the plaintiffs claim they weren't compensated for the use of their names, images, and likenesses in Raquel's content. The 147-page complaint also names Smith's boyfriend, Hunter Hill, as the primary director and editor of Raquel's content. The 11 teenagers are each asking for roughly $2 million in damages from Smith and Hill, totaling at least $22 million. But fascinatingly, after the lawsuit was announced in January 2022, Tiffany Smith would later countersue in July, seeking $30 million in damages, saying that this was a plot to try and extort her. However, Smith would later drop the case, with her opposition's representatives calling the countersuit baseless. It doesn't stop there for Smith though, because this lawsuit seems to only be the tip of the iceberg. If you look into the past of Piper Raquel's content, you'll see that these sorts of allegations and controversies have plagued it for years. For example, in 2021, YouTube took down 3 video thumbnails for violating its child safety policy, and this incident would then attract the attention of Pink, the famous singer-songwriter. Pink took to Twitter to throw shade at Tiffany Smith for exploiting her daughter, to which Smith responded by saying that these pictures are only weird if you interpret them as such. But even before this incident, Tiffany Smith had been accused of the worst. Back in 2020, NBC Los Angeles reported on a story in which there was an Instagram account made called Exposing Raquel, which accused Smith of being involved in CP. This was also something that the January 2022 lawsuit accused her of, which went on to allege that she once described herself as the pimp of YouTube. Now, I should clarify that this Instagram account isn't exactly reliable. Firstly, it leaked the address of Raquel and her mother, which is incredibly dangerous and creepy. Additionally, to the best of my knowledge, the person or people behind the account were never named, so it's possible that they just didn't know the family in the first place. Nonetheless, I thought that it should be brought up because there is a small chance that whoever was behind this account did actually know something. In regards to Piper Raquel's channel, in the wake of the lawsuit, it has been fully demonetized, but this isn't the end of the world for it, as Piper is still incredibly famous and is even going on tour right now as we speak. In fact, since the lawsuit began, I'd argue that she's at the very least maintained her popularity, if not actually increased it. There was a huge dip for a few months after the suit was announced, but in terms of both views and subscribers, May 2023 was her best month in the past 3 years. This might all change in November though, because if Tiffany Smith is found guilty of abusing these 11 minors, it would be a complete joke to keep the channel up if Tiffany Smith has anything to do with it. In my opinion, if Tiffany Smith is in fact found guilty of abusing these 11 minors, YouTube have to stay consistent. Piper Raquel's channel has to go. So I guess all we have to do now is just wait and find out. Alright, that's all we have time for today. If you enjoyed this, please make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. This has been an hour, so I feel like you're almost obliged to subscribe. Please do, I would truly appreciate it. Aside from that, I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you later.